Well, you probably saw this coming. I covered Apex and Overwatch 2, so it was only a matter of time before I talked about the billion-dollar elephants in the room. It's finally time to talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. But I'm not here to talk about the multiplayer. If you want my TLDR, it's a much needed return to form, but also it's kind of a buggy mess. Here's the thing though, we all know exactly what COD is. You either love it or hate it, and nothing that I can say will change your mind. And as much as I'd love to pretend I played the campaign, I haven't touched a COD campaign since Black Ops 3. So if it's not campaign and it's not the multiplayer, then obviously I'm here to talk about Warzone, the juggernaut of battle royales, the potential Apex killer, right? Nope. We're actually not talking about that either. We're here to talk about the demilitarized zone. But first, let's back up a bit, because now is a good time to admit something. I don't think I like Warzone. If you watched my last Apex video, you'll know I said Apex is the only battle royale that ever held my attention. And that's still true for me. Now, before you jump on my throat, I don't think Warzone is bad. I'd actually argue that it's a pretty good battle royale. But for me, the map is too big, the time to kill is too short, and the overall pacing of matches is too slow for me to really get any satisfaction or enjoyment. I don't really enjoy the loop of running around, doing nothing for 5 to 10 minutes, only to die to someone sniping a million miles away, or to get shot in the back by little Timmy camping in the corner of a grocery store. Sure, you can say I just don't like it because I'm trash at the game, but then you'd only be half right. What I mean to say is, I just don't think Warzone is for me. But you know what I have always liked? The Dark Zone. No, not that one. This one. Back in 2016, Ubisoft released The Division, a game that's plot hits a little closer to home now in 2022. In that game, they implemented what was, at the time, a pretty unique concept, especially for console players. The Division's Dark Zone was an area that contained AI just like the rest of the map, but it also contained other players who you could work together with. Or they could try to kill you. And why would they do that, you might wonder? Well, obviously because it's funny to grief other players, but also for the loot. See, in the Dark Zone you could unlock high tier items to use in the rest of the game, but just picking those items up didn't make them yours. Items found in the Dark Zone are contaminated, which means that in order to use them, you have to extract them. Calling in an extraction helicopter sent up a beacon for other players to see, and it also marked your location on the map. And because the loot in the Dark Zone could be very good, other players might show up to take your loot for themselves. Now, the Dark Zone was incredibly flawed in its execution, but the core concept was unique and it offered a gameplay experience that you couldn't find anywhere else. Since The Division, we've had improved versions of this concept in games like The Division 2 and Escape from Tarkov. And while these games are still admittedly a bit niche, they do succeed in carving out a space for themselves. In response, DMZ is Activision's addition to what could loosely be called the hardcore extraction genre. Similar to the other games, you spawn into a demilitarized zone where you can take on all sorts of missions and challenges, and then try to successfully extract with the weapons and items you find. And for their first attempt at the genre, I actually think DMZ does a pretty good job. So let's talk about why I think this works and why you might want to check this mode out for yourself. I'm gonna be very candid here at the start. This mode can be very difficult. If you think you're just gonna hop into DMZ, kick back and mow down waves of bots, you're going to be in for a bad time. There's a reason why the genre name includes hardcore. But compared to something like Escape from Tarkov, DMZ is very accessible in terms of getting started and understanding the goal of the mode. Granted, I've seen my fair share of Tarkov, so I wasn't exactly going in blind, but even my friends who have never played an extraction game were able to catch on to this mode pretty quickly. When you first jump in, you'll be assigned challenges like activate a UAV tower or locate a contract phone. You also spawn in pretty close to a contract location, so the game effectively guides you directly to where you should be going. And once a contract is cleared, you can find indicators on the map showing the nearest extraction point. Of course, like any game, you can miss these details if you aren't paying attention. But if you're actively trying to learn the mode, there are lots of tools available to help you. There might be some fans of the hardcore extraction genre that find this accessibility off-putting, but to me it's a nice change of pace. Tarkov was always one of those games I thought was really cool, but I couldn't get into it because of how much learning it required, and without friends to play with, I found myself intimidated. DMZ addresses some of these barriers, moving this experience into one of the world's biggest shooting games available on every platform, and simplifying some of the basics is a great way to bring fresh blood into the genre. At their core, extraction modes share a lot of similarities with battle royale games. In fact, I first learned about these games by watching an Apex streamer play Tarkov. So releasing DMZ as a free-to-play experience alongside Warzone 2 was a great way to introduce new players to the concept and finally bridge the gap between the two audiences. Despite all the tools designed to give you a game plan for DMZ, the actual execution of that plan will often be much more difficult than it sounds. For starters, you may or may not start off with a weapon depending on what happened in your previous game. So there may be games where you have to run into an enemy camp throwing punches and grenades just to get to a starting point. You may be wondering why I didn't say sneak in and take someone out from behind. And that seems like a great strategy, except that these guys are completely omniscient. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong. But it seems like no matter how you crawl or crouch and sneak around, the AI will always know exactly where you are. There are enemies everywhere, even hiding among the trees. And if you aren't in cover when you run into them, you'll be melted in seconds. Now I know that sounds terrible, and to be honest, it can lead to some deaths that feel totally unfair. But the unfairness of the bots has two core functions. One, bots are so strong that you have to approach them similar to how you would approach real players. As a result, there's less dissonance between combat encounters when you run into actual people. Think about it. How many times have you played a game with AI enemies? You're minding your business, mowing them down, and then all of a sudden a player appears and obliterates you because you weren't ready for them. In DMZ, the difficult AI ensures that you're never caught off guard. But the tough bots have a second, more important function: satisfaction. Because the AI enemies in this mode are so tough, most players will have to actually try in order to clear the various contracts. Sure, some missions are easier than others, but to complete the more rewarding contracts and survive to extraction, players will have to work as a team to overcome real challenges. And because the challenges are, well, challenging, completing missions feels less like checking something off a list and more like an accomplishment. In one of my earliest games, my friend and I got absolutely decimated by a combination of players and bots. By some miracle, we escaped, but we had no shields and no ammo. Meanwhile, the radiation started to spread and overtook the closest extraction. What started as one last greedy stronghold push turned into a race against the clock to keep our loot. My friend was caught and killed by bots as we were trying to escape, and things weren't looking much better for me. I was stuck in the storm with low health and no gas mask. Luckily, along my escape path was a buy station. I had just enough money to refill my shields and purchase a gas mask, but there was only one extraction point and 60 seconds left to escape. After falling into a river and scraping my way out, I miraculously made it to the extraction point with just a few seconds remaining. My heart was racing and my hands were shaking, but I had one singular thought in my mind at that point: I like this game. Surviving a game of DMZ where you obtain meaningful loot is legitimately difficult, and that means doing it successfully creates a rush that you couldn't experience if the game mode was any easier. Of course, since you can exfil at any time, you can always make the game a bit less risky and progress little by little. But for those who like to ride the line and stay on the edge of their seat, this mode truly delivers. And for those who don't, I think there's one more thing that makes this mode work. While some players like me may be willing to try out and keep playing DMZ simply for the satisfaction of a challenging mode, there are others who might think, what's the point? Why should I leave Warzone or Team Deathmatch to play something different and potentially more difficult? And for those players, in a surprising stroke of genius, Activision provided an answer. They realized that if people were going to leave the modes they enjoy to play something else, then the mode they were jumping into should add value to the ones they're leaving. And sure, that value could have just been experience points, but Call of Duty has tons of ways to level up weapons. So the devs came up with another answer by asking another question. If the goal of the mode is to exfiltrate with your loot, what if some of that loot was a permanent unlock? Allow me to introduce the M13, a fast-firing, high-precision assault rifle that can turn you into an FPS god, or so I've been told. The M13 is a weapon that drops when you take down a high-value target named the Chemist in DMZ. And according to those who have obtained the weapon, or died to it, it's well worth the effort. There's nothing COD players love more than a powerful weapon, so making the M13 obtainable only in DMZ provides great incentive for those that wouldn't have given the mode a second look otherwise. To take out the Chemist, most players will need to play at least a few games just to gather decent weapons and armor and find a gas mask. And that's just the first step. After you take out the Chemist, you're marked for the rest of the lobby, so there's a risk that someone else in the lobby will kill you and take it before you can exfil. This is not an easy mission, but that's a good thing, because it means that players will need to play multiple games in order to unlock the gun. And it's possible that some people may never unlock it, at least not before it goes on sale. Now, I personally find it wrong that they're planning to sell the weapon later. It's an affront to anyone that gets the weapon legitimately. But I think that's a testament to the difficulty of this challenge. Unlocking the M13 will give people stories similar to running the library on legendary difficulty, or beating a Souls game for the first time. Will there be people that complain that it's way too hard? Yes. Will there be people who use an exploit to unlock the weapon? Yes. Will I get called out as a shill in the comments for supporting Activision by liking this mode? Yes. Anyway, if this beta is an indication of things to come, I think that DMZ might be on the right track. But what do you think about DMZ? Has it won you over to the genre? Let me know in the comments below. Also remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.